What's happening, guys? It's your girl Mina. Welcome back to my channel, man. You guys already know what it is. Big up to everyone that's locked in. Happy Friday. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday. If you are breaking up for school because of the Christmas break or because of, you're breaking up for work, I hope you have a great week of freedom ahead of you lot. You lot know what it is. Now, it's really not a day. If there's no Manchester United news, obviously I'm going to touch upon and discuss the most recent article by Laurie Whitwell at The Athletic, which is a very damning article. If you've not had the chance to read it, I'm going to show you guys some extracts from it because some of it actually relates to the topic of this stream. Now, Manchester United take on West Ham tomorrow, early kickoff. It's an early kickoff in 12:30 on a Saturday. You know what I hate about 12:30 kickoffs? It really makes or breaks your weekend. If your team lose, it's a miserable weekend. If your team wins, it's a great weekend. And that's what I don't like about that's what I don't like about Saturday early kickoffs. But to be honest, Sunday ones, are they any better because it ruins your week ahead? I don't know. Let me know which ones you guys kind of prefer. But Manchester United take on West Ham away from home. You know, our record away from home has not been great. And West Ham are picking up a little bit of form. And you lot see the thumbnail of this video, the title of this video, Antony versus Mohamed Kudus. Don't really think there's much to compare. However, today's article from Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic mentions Antony. It mentions Antony, which is a very interesting point. I'm going to actually touch on it right now because, if you haven't read the article from Laurie Whitwell kind of touches upon the structure of Manchester United that Ineos are inheriting. It talks about Murto, it talks about Arnold, it talks about Sir Alex Ferguson, it talks about recruitment, it talks about a lot of stuff, and a lot of the article is predominantly about Murto. It's predominantly about Murto and the fact that he might survive another tenure being involved at Manchester United. It talks about how he came into the club, how Sir Alex Ferguson was confused as to why he remained when David Moyes left, because he was hired by David Moyes and then he managed to outlive David Moyes. But in the article, I'm going to read out a part of the article so that we can talk about it. He says that and it talks a lot about Erik ten Hag and his involvement in recruitment, his involvement in the operations of buying players, although he hasn't been responsible for the fees. But it talks about how a lot of the transfer strategy for the players that United have signed under Erik ten Hag has just absolutely failed. They talk about how they had a plan to only buy Mason Mount for 40 million, ended up paying 60. The fact that they valued Antony at 25 million before Erik ten Hag came in. He was a player that was on the list of right wingers. 25 million, ended up paying near enough to 85 million instead. That's like 60 million more. It talks a lot. If you have not read it, guys, please go over to The Athletic and have a read about it. But there's a section of it that says, separately, Ten Hag felt he needed an additional attacker, and though he had reservations about returning to Ajax, the target to gain universal agreement was Antony. So the target was Antony. That was the target of, in terms of who they wanted, who Ten Hag wanted. And then this is the part that is quite damning for me. Under the management of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, United scouts had made reports that left staff valuing Antony at around 25 million. Midway through the summer of 2022, United cut off talks with Ajax and privately communicated they would not pay more than 60 million. In the final days of the window, with desperation around Old Trafford heightening and Ten Hag pressing for reinforcements, United agreed a fee of 86 million. Ajax chief Edwin van der Sar later told The Athletic that he had challenged Arnold and Murto to go as far as possible at a time when the Dutch club had already sold several first team players. Ten Hag undoubtedly wanted to sign Antony, but sanctioning the overlay came from above. Those with understanding of United's structure say several directors are involved in the checks and the balances during a transfer window. So this essentially is telling us that Erik ten Hag, although he wanted Antony and he pushed to sign Antony and he was interested in signing Antony, the final say in the price came from those above him. So much we talk about why did Ten Hag sign Antony for that price. It came from above him. And it's not just Antony, by the way. This article talks about pretty much all the signings, including, I think the only signing it doesn't really touch upon is Lisandro Martinez. I think that's the only one that it doesn't really touch upon, but it touches upon Mason Mount. It touches upon Rasmus Højlund. It touches upon when United went and to get Sabitzer on a loan. The fact that, it talks about the fact that they wanted Gravenberch and they went to Bayern Munich and Bayern Munich said no to Gravenberch, but you know what, you can have Sabitzer. It talks about Erik ten Hag's agent and how he's very heavily involved around Carrington, which to me is a bit unusual. It's like, why is a manager's agent in the training facilities? That's odd. I find that a bit weird. And obviously, it's not a secret that that Eric Ten Hag shares an agent with quite a few players that United have gone on to either sign or have been interested in signing. It's a very damning article. It's called, if you guys want to read it, it's on The Athletic. It's called Special Report Inside Manchester United's Football Operations that Ineos stands to inherit. It's honestly, guys, it's a very damning article. I just read it the whole time. I wasn't shocked about a lot of the stuff because I feel like we kind of definitely anticipated it. We definitely kind of anticipated it. But for me, it was more so like, oh, it's weird to kind of see it in full-fledged writing. It's like you kind of have your suspicions and you kind of have your the suspicions of how things are going on and how things are run. But to see it written, obviously, this article, a lot of it is people speaking under confidentiality. They're speaking under being anonymous. They don't want their names to be out there. But the information that is in the article clearly suggests that this is from people that know what's happening. This is from people that know what's happening, that know how the day-to-day operations are running, the day-to-day structure, etc. But big up to everyone in the chat. Hi there, it's Usman. We emailed you the other day and thanks for your reply. I love the show and we'll keep supporting. Thank you very much, Usman. Your email was honestly, it was very flattering, very lovely email to receive. And I really appreciate it. Big up to Antony, says big up Mina and everyone in the chat. We all know who is clear. It is Kudus. I don't really think it's I think firstly, can I just say, I think they're two kind of different players. I feel like when Kudus was at Ajax, and you know, if you even watch him for Ghana, he does play predominantly in that 10 role. That don't mean he can't play on the wings. I think he could definitely play left, right. I've seen him play left wing at the World Cup for Ghana. I've seen him play right wing for Ghana in the World Cup. I've seen him play in the 10. He's very versatile. He's a very versatile man in that front line. And I think, you know, it's quite, we could talk about, oh, you know, we went to Ajax and we walked away with Antony instead of Kudus, but I don't think the manager was ever on the manager's target list. I don't think he was ever on the manager's target list. I don't think the manager was ever interested in going for him. So that's really, I think that's the main thing. Of course, we could talk about all of Antony's shortcomings right now this season in particular. We could talk about Antony's struggles. We could talk about, you know, the fact that I think he's had one goal or assist. So he's had one goal involvement in about nearly 30 games, I think it is, which is quite, I don't want to talk about the price tag, but for the role that you've come in to fill, that is quite a damning number to have one goal involvement in over 30 games. That is, and also it's not just that, by the way, it's also the stat that I saw relating not just to Antony but Garnacho in 7.5 hours of football. In 7.5 hours of football, Garnacho and Antony have passed to Rasmus Højlund a combined 10 times. 10 times. A combined 10 times. I don't know. 7.5 hours. If we just do the maths, 7.5 hours is like what? 5 games? Is that like 5 games? If my maths is correct, say we play on average 93 minutes a game, yeah? If you play 93 minutes a game, I'm trying to do the maths, guys, just to be sure. 93 times 5. I don't even think it's that, you know. I don't even think it's that. 60 times 7. Yeah, it's about 5 games, guys. It's about 5 games. Big up to everyone in the chat. It's about 5 games or 5.5 games, and you've only passed to your striker a combined 10 times between the two wingers. That is poor. That is so poor. And, you know, we wonder why Rasmus hasn't hit the ground running in the Premier League. We question why he hasn't scored. If we look back at the Champions League goals that he scored, one came from an assist from McTominay. I think one was from Bruno. One was his own. He collected the ball from the midfield and made a run. It's nothing from his wingers. It's absolutely nothing from his wingers, which is such a questionable. Do you guys think that that's an instruction from the manager to kind of play it through the wings and then go through the channels rather than finding a target man in the box? Because for your striker to have less than or near enough to 10 passes combined in 7.5 hours, that's a red flag. That's a big red flag. Big up to Atom K, big up Broderick in the chat. Those stats are mad minute. It's a very concerning stat. It's a very concerning stat. If we even talk about, if you guys just joined us, I was talking about the article. I was talking about the article from The Athletic this morning. If you haven't read it, it's quite a damning piece about the structure, the football structure of Manchester United. And it's, to me, it feels like it's a hit on Murto's back, essentially, because half of the article is literally dragging him for everything that he's done. They said that at Manchester United, his desk is known as the black hole, because things go on his desk and it never comes back, i.e. people go with solutions or questions or whatever and they just never hear back from him. That is quite damning. I swear that says a lot. So they talk about Rasmus Højlund in the article, and obviously we're just talking about him right now. And it says that Atalanta had told Højlund in the summer that he could leave for £50 million. And United communicated that they would draw the line at 60 million, but then ended up agreeing a fee of 72 million during all-day talks in Bergamo that lasted until 3 a.m. Atlanta reportedly demanded 86 million for a player they signed they brought him for less than 15 million just 11 months earlier. So essentially, it seems like this article is insinuating that most of the clubs that have had business done with Manchester United under Erik ten Hag, under Murto, etc., and not just under Erik ten Hag, but under all managers. But essentially, the reoccurring theme here is Murto. He is the reoccurring theme that has been throughout. He's been here since David Moyes all the way up until right now. Reportedly, he's not looking to step down from his role. He's happy to work with Ineos. Doesn't mean that he's not going to get the boot. He might get the boot. But we have to wait and see. But the reoccurring theme here is that clubs tell their players one thing, and when it's United that comes knocking, they up their price. How can you 50 million was what they said to Rasmus Højlund, and United ended up paying nearly 25% more than that. That's crazy. And it's not just that. They talk about Mason Mount in the article. Says internally the price set for Mount was £40 million because he internally. So Manchester United looked at a player that had 1 year left on his contract and still felt that 40 million was a reasonable price. Come on. But anyway, that's each to their own. But they said internally the price set for Mount was 40 million because he had only 1 year left on his Chelsea contract. But that was the first offer Chelsea received. United's bid rose 50% to a total of 55 million plus 5 million in add-ons. If the full 60 million is realized, United would be delighted. However, there's a clause in this transfer that I don't think a lot of us have been aware of. Man United have to make a 1 million payment every time Mason Mount plays 70% of games during his 5-year contract. I don't think we're ever going to see Mason Mount play 90 million. We're not going to see Mason Mount play 90 minutes across, I'd say maybe. We might see him play maybe like 5 times in the season. So he's got a 5-year deal, and for every game he plays 70% of the minutes, United have to pay an extra million to Chelsea. That's on top of the already agreed fee of 55 million plus 5 million add-ons. That's another clause in that transfer. Who the hell thought that was a good idea? If Mason Mount was an integral part of Erik ten Hag's plans, meaning he was going to come in and play a lot under the manager, whether when he's fit and when he can do so. But if he was that guy that the manager wanted and he was an integral part, why would you agree that in a contract, in a clause? Because that means you're going to be paying a lot of money throughout his 5-year contract. Like, I'm not no football director. I'm not no football negotiator. But even I know that's bullshit. Excuse my language. But even I know that that's nonsense. I don't think anyone really knew about that deal, obviously, until recently. Chelsea sure have good negotiators. It's mentioned here. It's mentioned in the article as well that they essentially felt like Man United were worried other clubs would come in. Liverpool, Arsenal, etc. So they had to kind of get the ball moving as quick as possible with that. They talk about the Casemiro signing. This article, guys, if you want me to go through like the in-depth parts, is quite telling. Apparently, so Murto has a thick dossier that outlines targets for each position. But that uncertainty at the start emboldened Ten Hag to take matters into his own hands, meaning that Ten Hag didn't even trust Murto and his recruitment strategy and his recruitment plans and all of this stuff. Bear in mind the 806, do you guys remember the 806 right backs that they reportedly scouted under Ed Woodward, and they went with Wan-Bissaka from that? That's mentioned in the article too. But apparently Murto came to Ten Hag with a list of centre backs, because Ten Hag came in and said that he wanted a left-footed centre back, and he came back with a list that included Lisandro Martinez, Vardiol, Bastoni, and Pau Torres. And from the jump, it was always preferred by Erik Ten Hag that he wanted Martinez because of his attainability and also because of the fact that they already had an established relationship. Obviously, they then went on. Apparently, Manchester United also have this scouting database, how they target signings. And you know what, guys, the most telling part for me, honestly, the most damning part for me, and this is actually this is actually confirming to me how United kind of operated, not just under Erik Ten Hag when he was manager, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is when Murto went to make a deal for Amad Diallo to, again, Atalanta, a team that's made millions of United in just the space of a couple of years. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not aware. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, by the way, was not aware of the fact that United had been in talks or had plans to go and sign Amad Diallo. So in the article, it says that sometimes transfers would happen very quickly. For example, Amad Diallo, who had only 24 minutes of senior football, joined from Atlanta with a fee rising to 37 million. Murto worked on this deal, flying out to Bergamo. Solskjaer eventually gave him his blessings to the signing 48 hours before the announcement, having just watched video footage. That's it. He just watched video footage. But he was unaware of the fee, which rose dramatically from when prospective buyers inquired at Atalanta. Solskjaer initially believed Amad was an exciting talent as an academy player, but realized after the move was finalized that the money involved meant he was expected to soon feature in the first team. Meaning, I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer probably felt like he was ready to be in the first team. I don't think so. And it's quite telling if we brought him from an academy. I don't think I've ever seen an academy player brought for another academy team for £37 million. I don't think that. By the way, this article also, if you guys have just joined, I'm talking about the Athletic article written that came out today by Laurie Whitwell, talking about Manchester United's football structure. If you ain't got a subscription to the Athletic, then I'm here to read it for you guys. I will read all the good parts out to you guys. But also it insinuates, the article does insinuate Sir Alex Ferguson and Murto not being on good terms, and they're not really fond of each other. Apparently Sir Alex Ferguson is not really that fond of him either. What else does it talk about? It talks about, obviously, Joel Glazer. I don't want to chat about the Glazers. It talks about what Ineos is basically inheriting, and it also talks about what we all know, which is the Frankie de Jong situation. Reportedly, when Manchester United, again, this is all, a lot of this ain't really news. I don't feel like a lot of this is news. Reportedly, Manchester United have been cash strapped for the last 2 transfer windows, which is why they've been given longer contracts out to players to kind of amortize that across their contract year. And they also felt that signing Casemiro, so this is the worst part of the article for me anyways, because I'm a big fan of Declan Rice, and it talks about the fact that United were looking at Declan Rice and did feel like he would have been the better target and the better option, not just for longevity because he was young, 23 years old at the time when we signed Casemiro, but also the fact that they could offer him a longer contract, amortize that across a number of years in comparison to Casemiro, and they would have actually offered him less fees. So even though he would have been worth about double what we paid for Casemiro, we paid 70 million for Casemiro, his wages wouldn't have been as much as that. So it talks about, obviously, you lot remember the United process with Frankie de Jong, and basically after Pereira was sold, Ten Hag was informed that there was no further money to spend in the summer of 2022. This is after United signed Malacia, they signed Christian Eriksen, and they signed Lisandro Martinez. Excuse me. Then obviously United, we lost to Brighton, we lost to Brentford, and they said verbatim, this is what it says in the article: panic spread. Richard Arnold became more visible around Carrington and sat in on lengthy recruitment meetings. It was then that the staff decided to move from Frankie de Jong to Casemiro. The decision to go for Casemiro, a completely different profile of midfielder, was taken despite some internal resistance. I anticipate that that's probably the manager. Like I said many times before, I don't think the manager wanted Casemiro. I think he was a club signing. I think he was just a move away from, going for Frankie de Jong to going to someone that's more available. And this basically confirms it. It doesn't say that it's Erik Ten Hag, but it says that there was some internal resistance. It was calculated calculated that signing Declan Rice for 120 million would have been better for United's long-term financial fair play than bringing in Casemiro at then age 30 for half of the fee. So even though Casemiro cost less in terms of transfer fee, it would have been better for FFP reasons for United to go and sign Declan Rice. And he was an option that they were looking at, but they went for, I don't know why they went for Casemiro instead. Rice's salary would have been significantly less than Casemiro's, which he's earning around 350k a week. And he would have signed a longer contract because of his age, meaning the cost could have been amortized or spread out over a longer period. So again, just kind of touches on what I said. And the Casemiro deal from Real Madrid is one of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's questions during his tour of Carrington back in March. And it was confirmed that basically he's expected to take control with his 25% investment pretty soon. But this kind of tells you that this Casemiro deal, and it says it in the article, guys, it's not me that's making this up. It says it in the article. The Casemiro deal, worth 60 million plus 10 million in add-ons, ended Manchester United's hopes for potentially signing Harry Kane. So signing Casemiro not only stopped United from going for Declan Rice, but it also stopped them from going for Harry Kane, because the England striker's wages would have been too difficult to work into the FFP regulations, and Kane was Ten Hag's top choice from when he joined Manchester United. Not just when, you know, it was clear that he was leaving on a free, but apparently even the year before that, when the summer that Ten Hag came in, and I think it was the summer when Haaland joined City, so that Kane move to City was off. Ten Hag was still interested in him, but signing Casemiro ruined that all. United went for Casemiro because Ten Hag needed an immediate impact, and he was available, having decided that he wanted to leave Real Madrid. United's football department mapped out how he would fit into the team, delved into his injury record, and came to a unanimous decision to proceed. And at the time, West Ham were refusing to entertain offers for Rice, and Ten Hag did not want to wait. I mean, Ten Hag sat around waiting for Frankie de Jong, so I don't know why he would want to sit around and wait for Declan Rice. Casemiro obviously had a good campaign. They talk about how good his first year campaign was, and now that he's been out in injury. Now, this is the interesting part. This is my favorite part of articles, guys. It's when my favorite part of articles is when people speak under anonymity, when people speak with, you know, to interviews. And I've had it before when I've written articles where I get to speak to people, and it will always be anonymous, because you know they're going to give you the tea. They know, you know, you're going to get the good tea, you're going to get the good information, because they're speaking anonymously, so they know their name won't be out there. And also this information can come from a bunch of different people. So one source with knowledge of the process, who's asked to be anonymous, believes that 1 year's worth of transfer work and recruitment work was crammed into 3 months in Ten Hag's first summer. Rather than starting conversations on signings in September 2021, after the previous window had closed, United to begin that work in May 2022, the justification being that new manager meant new plans. Actions sped up even further as the summer transfer approached, with Ten Hag anxious for a strong midfield. So basically, instead of Manchester United kind of planning for the summer transfer window a year in advance, they started planning for it when Ten Hag basically was announced to come in. But I don't think the problems change. I think the problems have been consistent across manager. United have needed a midfielder. We've needed a centre back. We've needed a striker. These are not anything like out of the ordinary. This is not, Erik Ten Hag wouldn't have come in May 2022 and be like, yeah, we need a striker, we need a midfielder, because we would have known that the year before. Obviously, when Ten Hag came in, we did have Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. But Cristiano Ronaldo was always, in my opinion, a short-term plan. He was not going to be there. He wasn't going to be at United for 4, 5, 6 years. United have always needed to sign a striker. Same with midfield. United have always needed to sign a midfield. So this is pretty damning that this is coming from someone inside. It's coming from inside the kind of the Carrington atmosphere, where it's someone who is involved with this, who is saying, well, we've done 3 months work. We've done 12 months work in 3 months, basically. This right now, United should have, I think, their transfer targets. Like going into the next summer transfer window, we should have our transfer targets. We shouldn't be waiting until May, June, maybe even July to go out and sign players. which is quite damning for me. Let me know your thoughts if you guys have read the article. It's a very interesting article, a very long one as well. If you lot want to read it, it's on The Athletic. They talk about Cody Gakpo as well, because I just see someone mentioned it. They talk about Cody Gakpo and also Ten Hag's agent, which is the one that I want to talk about. Here it is. This is the part that kind of was like, okay, I always heard people talking about this, but to see it in written form is kind of interesting. So it mentions here about when Eriksen got injured in the January window, and so when Eriksen got injured on January 28th, the manager eyed a deadline move for Gravenberch, but from Bayern Munich. Bayern insisting Gravenberch was unavailable for loan, but proposed Marcel Sabitzer instead. An idea that Ten Hag liked. United had historical scouting reports on Sabitzer, but only went through for him through circumstance rather than design. United argue this is an example of their dexterity, with a deal sorted in 3 hours once talks began. Bayern took calls from Kez Voss, which is Ten Hag's agent, once the extent of Eriksen's injury became known. Voss is a founder of SEG, and he's been a visible presence around Manchester United since Ten Hag's appointment, attending games in the Old Trafford box and visiting Carrington for meetings. He's also been seen in the training ground canteen where players eat, access some staff have questioned. United are conscious of potential conflicts of interest, but are satisfied with an arrangement that assists their ability to assess the market. Now, this is interesting for me because why is it that United have gone for a lot of it's not actually why is it, because we know what the answer is, but this is kind of confirmed to me why United go for a lot of players that are represented by this agent, essentially. United, the article also talks about how United broke the bank this summer, and I'm using that very, very lightly. They're saying that United broke the bank because essentially they had no plans. Apparently, United had no plans to be spending more than 200 million. They didn't have plans to even spend 200 at all. But Ten Hag's second summer followed a similar pattern of flexible plans. Inflated prices and broken budgets. Man United ended up committing nearly 200 million, despite initially communicating internally that spending would be seriously restricted. Man United are like me. They're like me. When I go out shopping and I go to a shoe store, clothing store, and I say I'm only going to spend this much, and then I see stuff I like, and then I walk out with a lot more than I anticipated. That's literally the same problem. Me and United, we have the same issue. And then it goes on to say, had the eventual scope of finance been known in advance, sources believe Ten Hag may have assigned the money differently, although he accepted landing Kane would have left little cash for any other player. United feel they strengthened the team in nearly every area required and took a long-term view by buying younger players. Højlund, 20 years old, Mount 24, Onana, 27. If Onana being 27, if that's young, then boy, I can't tell you. 20 and 24 in Højlund and Mount, I understand, but saying Onana at 27 is part of the plan of you signing young players. You sign him on a 5-year deal. He's going to be 32, 33 by the time his contract finishes. So that's funny to me, but it's interesting that this article kind of states that is this suggesting, this particular line, by the way, saying, had the eventual scope of finance been known in advance, sources believe Ten Hag may have assigned the money differently. Is that line implying that Ten Hag didn't know that United were cash strapped this summer? I mean, 200 million is not cash strapped, but is this Ten Hag suggesting that he didn't know that United were not planning to invest like that financially? I'm really curious to that, because it's saying that he may have assigned the money differently, which is what we talk about a lot on streams. I always mention how, had we done X and Y, then, oh, he's young for a keeper. Okay, that makes sense. But I always suggest, had United signed, not signed X and Y, we could have signed Harry Kane. Well, it seems like the big problem with signing Harry Kane stemmed from United signing Casemiro the year before that for FFP reasons. It's not the transfer fee that would have been difficult. It would have been the wages that would have been difficult. I mean, Harry Kane would have been 400k, 450 at least, I think, at the minimum. So that says a lot. So it kind of shows that now we know what the answer is. We kind of know what the answer is. United didn't sign Kane, not because they didn't want to. He was wanted by the manager. The manager wanted him, but signing Casemiro the year before was the hindrance to signing Harry Kane this year. United would not have been able to do so. FFP rules, FFP regulations, whatever it is, they could simply not afford him salary-wise. I think the fee wouldn't have the fee. They could have reallocated the fees from other transfers, but I think the problem was the wages. I think the problem would have been the wages. It's as simple as that, and it's kind of what I. It's good to hear this because we get an answer as to why United didn't go for Kane. I think for so long we've speculated why did United not go for Kane? Why, he was the one that the manager wanted, X, Y, Z. People did speculate it was salary. People speculated, well, Daniel Levy would have never sold to Manchester United and, he would have made it difficult, etc., etc. But now we know it's really the wages. The wages have been the issue. And this also kind of confirms, not kind of confirms, but it kind of suggests that maybe in order for United to go out in the summer transfer window and sign a marquee signing, I don't know if that's the way that they're going to go down, but if they are going to do that, maybe that means Casemiro will leave. Maybe Casemiro will leave in January. The article also reports that Murta was in Saudi Arabia for a few weeks, talking to clubs, talking to, officials over there, trying to see what they can do in the January transfer window with, Varane, Antony, Martial, Casemiro, and Sancho, the 4 players that were named in the article who United could potentially be looking to offload. So I don't know about Varane, because if by January they don't sell him, he can start negotiating with other clubs. He can leave on a free. I don't think United would want to kind of miss out on any kind of transfer fee with that. Casemiro, I think United do want to offload their wages. Do you guys think that now do you guys think that the reason why United have been getting rid of or trying to get rid of all the big earners is because of the FFP reason? Because I know that there has been speculation about Erik ten Hag trying to save costs for the Glazers. But now that I'm reading this, I'm thinking, interesting. I'm thinking, okay, are United looking to offload the big wages and the big salaries because they want to go out and actually sign long-term plans and long-term projects for the manager? Or do they just want to get rid of the people that just earn a lot? Because it's actually quite interesting that the 4 players that United are looking to offload are 4 of the biggest, the highest earners at the club. They are 4 of the if we were to look, I'm pretty sure they are all the highest earners. If we let me just look at the list quickly. So it's Casemiro, Varane, Jadon Sancho, Martial. They are the top. They are 4 out of the top 6 earners in the club, basically. Casemiro obviously earns the most. Varane earns second most. Rashford, and then Jadon Sancho, Mason Mount, and Antony Martial earn actually the same amount. So Martial is funny because he's the only one that actually doesn't make bonuses. The other 2, Mount and Sancho, are all on bonuses as well. It's quite funny to me that Mason Mount came to Manchester United and managed to get 250k. He left a salary of how much? 70k, 80k at Chelsea, and basically tripled it. He literally tripled it at Manchester United. Quadrupled it if we include the bonuses. He makes a growth. I think his bonus annually is 2.5 million. And you know what? Shout out to Jadon Sancho's negotiators in it, because Jadon Sancho makes the most in bonuses out of everyone at the club. Obviously, he's on 250k a week base salary, but his bonus takes it up to 350k. I don't know, obviously, what the bonus structure is and all of that, but it's interesting that this article is basically suggesting that United couldn't get Kane because they signed Casemiro. So for FFP reasons, because of the salary and the wages, etc., they could not go and sign Harry Kane. And suddenly, now United are looking to offload all the highest earners in the club. Casemiro 350, Rafael Varane 340, and then obviously Sancho and Martial 250 each. But obviously Sancho makes more with bonuses. So it's funny, it's interesting now that United are trying to change that wage salary. I mean, please stop talking about Mount. We were scammed on so many levels. You know what? The article even mentions it, how we signed Mason Mount. I'm just gonna repeat it again in case you joined late. But United were apparently worried that other clubs would come in and sign Mason Mount. They were, because Chelsea were looking to offload a lot of players. United were worried that they would come in, Arsenal, Liverpool, whoever, and would sign Mason Mount. Now, this is the most interesting part in the salary, in the contract of signing Mason Mount, that I think for so long United have to pay. So, okay, this is what the article says, yeah? So I'm not making it up. It says that internally the price set for Mount was 40 million because he only had a year left on his Chelsea contract. So United were willing to pay up to 40 million for him on 1 year left on his contract. That's weird. But and that was the first offer that Chelsea received. Obviously, United ended up paying 55 million plus 5 million add-ons. if that was the only kind of case, United would be ecstatic, only paying 60 million. But on top of that, there is a clause in the contract. Yeah. And this is what absolutely shocked me when I read the article. There's a clause in the contract that suggests that Man United have to pay 1 million to Chelsea every time Mason Mount plays 70% of games in a title-winning campaign during his 5-year contract. Now, it's interesting because I don't know if that's kind of suggesting, that United have to be in a title race for that. But why would you even agree that? Why would you? You've already overpaid. You said you wanted to pay 40. You ended up paying 60. Now you're saying on top of that we'll give you 1 million for every game he plays 70%. Nah, like that is so questionable. That is honestly so, call it a scam. Honestly, it looked like money laundering. Chelsea have done a great job offloading their players. I don't know what the clauses were for Kai Havertz. I'm not too sure about how that worked out with his move to Arsenal. But the fact that they managed to get that much money, Koulibaly, Mendy, or Ziyech, all these players that they managed to offload, they can do a much better job than us. Big up to Lil Yo-Yo says Mina equals money. Big up, big up. We should have waited a year for Mason Mount. I mean, it's common sense. It's common sense. It's actually common sense. In my opinion, I think it's common sense. No offense, but if a player is on 1 year left of the contract, I think it should be much easier. It should be much easier to kind of go for them. I'm so happy we got Szoboszlai instead of Mount. I mean, Szoboszlai cost what, 80 million? Did Liverpool paid about 70 million? I think it was around 70 million that Liverpool paid for him. But looks like he's been doing a much better job there. Giving them big salaries and now saying they have to leave. How stupid. It's like blaming the players for their mistakes. Listen, enough about this article. If you don't want to read the article, it's on The Athletic. It's called, what's it called? It's called Inside the Manchester United Football Operation. Oh my God, I didn't even talk about the last part. Sorry, let's talk about how Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't like Merteau. Let's talk about how Sir Alex Ferguson does not like Merteau. Let's talk about how he don't like Merteau. Firstly, be sure to hit the like button. You guys know what it is. Be sure to subscribe. Also, you can join the membership club. It's the pinned comment in the chat. You get your badges, you get your emojis. And this weekend, we are playing members only Among Us. So if you like Among Us, become a member and you can play Among Us. I'm still trying to figure out how I can do it live on stream. I think I figured it out. But be sure to do that. And obviously, you can support the growth of the channel. But this is the funny part. This is a funny part to me because it talks about how Merteau, the only person that does not warm up to him is Sir Alex Ferguson. So there was, however, one influential person at the club who did not warm to Merteau, and that's Sir Alex Ferguson. The tension between the pair exists till today. One of the early issues related to Merteau surviving Moyes, the man who had brought him into the club and growing influentially after his sacking in April 2014. So apparently Sir Alex Ferguson is not fond of the fact that Merteau has outlasted Moyes, even though Moyes was the one that brought him into the job. As Ferguson's authority at the club, he had managed for 26 years, began to subside, Merteau's power grew. So it's kind of like Sir Alex Ferguson's power going down, Merteau's going up. Woodward appointed him as head of football development in 2016 and asked him to reshape United's recruitment system. So the task was codenamed Project Bethlehem, and change swept the club. Merteau hired a bunch of people and they ran a bespoke database of players called Tracker Man, from which Woodward proudly said that United reviewed 804 right backs to sign Aaron Wan-Bissaka. That's a lie. Come on. You're telling me you sat there and went through 804 right backs and the best that you walked off with was Aaron Wan-Bissaka? I mean, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a good right back, don't get me wrong. But maybe they must have been only looking at the defensive stats. They must have been only looking at the defensive stats. So apparently he also, no pun, but butted heads with Nicky Butt as well. They had long-term disagreements. And yeah, he restructured the entire academy process of the club. This is in relation to Merteau. So reportedly, this is where the story gets interesting. And it talks about Jude Bellingham's visit to Manchester United when he was at Birmingham City. United's manager was enlisted by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to assist on charming assist on the charm offence for the Carrington visit from midfielder Jude Bellingham in March 2020. Solskjaer and his assistants had prepared an analytical presentation to prove Bellingham's prospects in the first team, as well as the complying detailed personal reports, and felt Ferguson would add a glamorous finish. Murtough, however, had a different view of the approach. Ferguson shook hands with Bellingham, but rather than allow them time to talk, sources say Murtough guided the player and his parents out of the room for a tour of the facilities. Ferguson was reportedly angry at the perceived sight and said so to Murtough's face at a later date. Murtough has told people he did not interrupt the meeting, and that, as with the Nicky Butt fallout, any tension was the result of a misunderstanding. So obviously, as time went on, his influence kind of increased. And obviously, we talked about the Amad Diallo thing. So it seemed like United, when Jude Bellingham, and I saw a report that was back when United had invited Jude Bellingham, that Ryan Robson said that he was convinced that after that meeting that Bellingham was going to join United because it went so good. But this is suggesting otherwise, that, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a whole presentation lined up about his path to the first team and how integral he'll be in the first team. And he wanted that to be finished off with like a meeting with the big boss, Sir Alex Ferguson, which I think a lot of players would appreciate, especially because of his history with the club. And this article is insinuating that essentially Murtough just swooped in and took him out. And after a quick little handshake with Sir Alex Ferguson and Jude Bellingham and his family, Murtough took them aside. So this article is actually quite interesting. It obviously says quite a lot. If you don't want to read it, be sure to. It's on The Athletic. But we're meant to preview the game. What we're meant to preview here was the West Ham game. And I already said, you lot already know that I said I hate Saturday kickoffs early morning. 12:30, lunchtime kickoff on a Saturday. Apologies to Liverpool fans who have actually had to have a lot of they've had to have a lot of them this year. But I don't like 12:30 kickoffs, mainly because if you lose, it ruins your entire weekend. Whereas if you're on Sunday 4:30, yeah, okay, your evening is ruined. Monday is a new day, you're back to life. But Saturday, Sunday, I'm just so angry. If we lose tomorrow, I'll be angry all weekend. I'll be annoyed all weekend. But you don't know what I say all the time. There's more to life than football. There's more to life than football. I've been told as an LFC fan, you can't complain about that by rivals. I'm not complaining about the players I don't care if the players have to play early. I'm complaining about myself. I don't like United playing 12:30 because it just ruins my weekend if United lose. Like, it's as simple as that. I think Liverpool have had the most. I think Liverpool have had the most 12:30 kickoffs this season, and they are only, I think, TV rights. You are only allowed to be on 6 12:30 kickoffs for TV rights, and I think Liverpool have already been on like 4 or 5 maybe, and it's always like consecutive weekends. I feel kind of bad for that. Putting everything on Murtough so fans can think he is the wrong person for the job. He surely is wrong, but not the actual problem. Remember the Ed Woodward sacking for diversion, a bit like politics. This kind of makes me think that Ineos are going to come in and sack Murtough and just be like, oh, this is why we sacked him. There's damning evidence against him. Like, I feel like this is an article that has been put together to kind of, the article has been put together to kind of, like I said at the beginning, put a hit on his back. So now that Ineos are coming in, if Murtough was to get sacked, no one's going to be surprised because everyone has read this article and they're going to be like, you know what, we support this. And then Ineos can come in and bring in their person with kind of no bicker, no kind of attention. It's kind of basically, it's just, yeah, exactly, preparing for his sacking. Essentially, that's what it's doing. Let's talk about the Manchester United versus West Ham game coming up tomorrow, of course. Away from home, it's going to be a sticky one. West Ham ain't even that far behind. I'm looking at the table right now. If West Ham beat us tomorrow, they go above us in the table. If West Ham beat us tomorrow, we are only 1 point ahead of them right now. We are 7th, they are 9th. So this is, again, a top 9 team that we're playing. Remember the record away against top 9 teams? We've only drawn in the last 12 months. We've only drawn twice, I think, in the last 12 months away from home against top 9 teams. Everyone else we've lost to. So that is another stat that is kind of worrying to me. We've seen, the fact that they can score goals. I mean, United have scored 18 goals in the league. 18 goals in the league we've scored. West Ham have scored 29, and they still have a negative goal difference. So obviously they score, but they concede. Maybe not. Actually, it's at a similar rate as Manchester United. United's goal difference, I think, is -3, and West Ham's one is -1. 29 goals. They've scored 11 more goals than us. You know, they are hitting form right now. West Ham are hitting, they're in a decent form right now, I think. Not in the, I won't talk about domestic cups, but I'll talk about in the league, and even in Europa League, they're in good form. They've beaten Spurs. They got slapped by Fulham a couple of weeks ago. I forgot about that. I'm just looking at their previous results, their last few previous results, and a lot of the teams they've actually beaten. They've beaten Nottingham Forest, beaten Burnley. They lost to Brentford, drew with Palace, and then they beat Spurs, got beat by Fulham, which is unusual, and then they beat Wolves. So they're kind of coming into this with some goal scoring form. They're scoring at least one goal every game, at least one goal, two. In a lot of these games, they're scoring 2 goals. They've had some losses, obviously, throughout the season. They lost to Villa. That was a very good game, I remember. And they've lost to Everton, drew to Newcastle. So they've got results against. Let me see all the results that they got against the big clubs. Against the big clubs so far this season, they have done. What have they done? They've beaten Chelsea, beaten Brighton. Then they lost to City. I can't believe I just called Brighton a big team. They lost to City, lost to Liverpool. They drew against Spurs. They drew to Newcastle. So these results are very confident. They're very confident. And you know what? You lot know I like Kudus in it. I think Kudus I think he's a good player. But I think West Ham have a good dynamic in their team in terms of their midfield, in terms of their front three. It's very in sync, if you know what I mean. They've got a very in sync, midfield and front line. Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta. I think they played Bowen up front last game. But Bowen can play across the front line, so that's good. They've got a good midfield, good holding midfield. They got a good back line. They're actually quite solid. West Ham, I think, are actually quite solid in terms of their setup, especially under their manager David Moyes. Who, anytime West Ham play United, I think that's essentially the story. David Moyes versus his old club, the club that sacked him after 9 months, 10 months in charge. The club that never gave him a chance. All of that kind of stuff. Essentially, that's always going to be the storyline. But also, another storyline is the ex-players against their ex-manager. The ex-Ajax players against their ex-Ajax manager. Erik ten Hag coming up against Kudus and Alvarez. The latter, the former who I think should have come to United, but that's my business. That's just my opinion. And Alvarez, who I think is a good player, but I never saw United going for him. And also, I would have been annoyed if United went for him, because that would have meant we just literally replicated the Ajax team in our starting 11. I wouldn't have been all for that. Their first 11 is good, their bench isn't that great. That's why they got thumped by us in the cup. Let's look at their bench. They got Cresswell, they got Ogbonna, they got Ben Rahma, they got 2 keepers, they got Danny Ings. I can't believe he's still playing football. Why did I think that he stopped playing football? I forgot that they signed him as well. Victor Lindelof is expected to be out for Manchester United as well. I think he's just had surgery, they said, so he's out for a couple of weeks. Lisandro Martinez is not expected back until probably the new year, which I think will kind of make way for, could it be another Varane and Johnny Evans? Could it be another Varane and Johnny Evans partnership? Could it be a Varane and maybe Luke Shaw partnership with maybe Reguilon or someone at left back? Dalot obviously is available. Wan-Bissaka, Andre Onana. Could this be a game where we might see Bayinda play? We might see Bayinda play, as Andre Onana is going to be out on AFCON soon. We've only got 3 games left before he leaves for AFCON. I think the United front line is a bit. I think the United starting 11 is a bit. But also, I'll say that the United front line, I've said this time and time again, I think this is the worst United front line that I've seen in a long time. Probably in my entire life of watching Manchester United, I think that this is the worst front line that I've seen of Manchester United. And it's not because of the players. It's just because I think they do not complement each other well. We already spoke about the whole Højlund and Antony and Garnacho thing about the fact that the wingers aren't passing to the front line. But I feel like there's no kind of fluidity. If you guys remember the Liverpool game, you know how frustrating it was to watch when United were on counters quite often against Liverpool, and it was Antony would try the outside boot pass because he can't pass with his right foot. He can't pass with his right foot, and he would try passing it with the outside of his boot. And every time, I think he gave the ball away. I think only once the pass went through. But that is so frustrating to watch. And that's another reason why they don't be passing to Rasmus Højlund, because Antony can't find him. He can't find him with the outside of his boot. I think this front line, this front three, it'd be interesting to see if Marcus Rashford makes it back into the starting lineup. Because I don't think we're playing it. Defensively, I think we're playing better. But attacking wise, there's nothing. There is nothing. Bruno Fernandes will be back. We haven't seen him play. Obviously, he was suspended for the Liverpool game, so it'll be nice to kind of see him back. Just to create stuff, create chances. What's going to happen with that middle in terms of who the hell is buzzing my door like that? Who the hell is buzzing my door like that? That's mannerless. When you buzz someone's flat, yeah, you should just press it. Why are you holding it like that? So that is, I'm not gonna lie, I do it sometimes. I'm a hypocrite. I do it sometimes. But anyways, as I was saying, the midfield for me is the most interesting thing because we've seen Kobe play and then not play and then not play and then play. Come on, like who's this? Come on, I'm not gonna open it. It's mad. I might have to get up and go open it. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to open it. I can't lie. It's Avram Glazer. They're pressing it with such force. I'm not gonna open it. If it's a package, they can just leave it out the door. I don't recall a package kind of coming. I don't recall ordering anything in the last couple of days. Murto's probably watching the stream and thinking, yeah, Murto madness at the door. Murto madness at the door. But back to the point about Kobe Mainoo and Sufyan Amrabat in terms of that midfield. The question I have with Ten Hag is, do you think he's going to play him again? Because it seems like it's far too often, he goes for Kobe Mainoo, he'll play him, bench him for like 3 games, 2 games, have him coming off the bench. And then they will play him again. He played away to Everton, away to Newcastle, and then away to Liverpool. That's all 3 games that he started so far. That's 3 loud grounds. That's 3 I wouldn't say hostile crowds, but that's crowds that get behind their team. Newcastle, Everton, and Liverpool. So is this going to be another situation where, we saw he put in a stunning performance against Everton, then bam, bench next game. Put in a great performance against Newcastle, bam, bench next game. Put in a good performance against Newcastle, and then against Liverpool, good performance. Will he get benched the next game? Bear in mind, we haven't had any midweek games, so there's no excuse in terms of there's no kind of excuse in terms of, oh, he needs to rest or he needs this. It's been a 7-day break, near enough a 7-day break basically since the last game. 6 days technically, but he didn't even play the full 90. So it'll be interesting. I think, in my opinion, if we were to think of starting 11s, guys, if we were to think about starting 11s, I think Kobe Mainoo has to be in it. I think he has to be in that. I think he should be the one guarantee. Obviously, there's other players who I think are guaranteed to start, such as Bruno Fernandes, Andre Onana. But for me, Kobe Mainoo in that midfield has to be the complete confirmed player to start. That has to be the confirmation for me, in my opinion. Let me know what you lot think in terms of starting 11. Who would you like to see? If the manager benches Mainoo, it's a sackable offense. He's done a lot of sackable offenses in the last couple months, guys. He's done a lot of sackable offenses. But I think, it's funny because people were saying by the West Ham game, Man United would probably have an interim manager. They'd have a caretaker manager because the manager was going to get sacked. He managed to hold out this long. Is this the moment where he's kind of turning it around? Are we going to go on a 3-game bounce of wins? Have we even won 3 in a row this season? I can't even remember if we won 3 in a row. But is he going to go on and win at West Ham, beat Villa, and then beat Nottingham Forest? End the year with 3 wins in a row. I hope so. I hope United can do that. But can United perform well 3 games in a row? I can't even sit here, guys, and talk to you about how United are going to play tomorrow because I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know how United are going to come out and perform. I don't know if they're going to perform well. I don't know if they're going to perform well. I don't know if they're going to be that energized team for about 20 minutes. And then, when it gets to the 65th, 70th minute, everyone just looks absolutely exhausted because they've been running so much, but, they're running and doing nothing at the same time. That's essentially that. I wouldn't be surprised if he benches Mainoo and starts McTominay. I agree. I think that's another player that's always guaranteed to start is Scott McTominay. He's gonna start. And you know what? I wouldn't want Mainoo to be left out alone in that midfield. Like, I don't like that. I don't want him to be the lone midfielder. He's going to have to deal with Alvarez, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Kudus coming in, Paqueta coming in. He's going to have a lot to deal with. McTominay is not going to get back in support. McTominay will not get back in support. And if he does, he's just there. He's not doing much. He's just physically, he's there. But practically is doing nothing. I think with Antony and Garnacho on the wings, you shall not play a 9, since a 9 needs service and not scoring wingers. You need more of a false 9 for these type of wingers. It would have been nice to see Sancho. I mean, he played he played false 9 throughout the entire preseason. I think Erik ten Hag should bench Bruno like he did in his career mode. Facts. Maino on the bench, surely. Amrabat and Maino would be nice. My ideal starting 11 tomorrow, it would be Onana in goal. It would be Wan-Bissaka at right back. It would be Varane, Luke Shaw, centre back pairings. And then it would be Dallo at left back or Reguilon. I don't really mind. The midfield for me, it would be Amrabat and Maino. But I know that the manager's not going to do that. But I would play Amrabat and Maino. Bruno in the 10. I'd bring back in, honestly, I'd bring Rashford back in. I'd bring Rashford back into the left. Oh, Dallo red card. Yeah, so he ain't going to play. So it would be Reguilon, basically. I would bring in Rashford. I would bring back Rashford. Honestly, I would let him have a start because really and truly, our wingers ain't doing nothing right now. So it can't be anything worse. It can't be anything worse. So I'd bring in Rashford, obviously Højlund, and I'd play Antony on the right. But I wouldn't mind Rashford on the right and Garnacho on the left, or interchangeably. I wouldn't mind Rashford on the left and Antony on the right. It makes no difference to me. But I would play Rashford. I don't know if the manager's still making a point with him, if the manager still feels like he needs to be benched. Obviously we know he's been in a slump, so essentially, inevitably he's not he's not gonna play. But we'll see. But guys, I'll be back. Actually, Marcel's messaging me right now. I'm meant to do a stream, guys, this evening with Marcel, but he's just replying to me about the timings. He's just letting me know about the timings. But I'll be back later on this evening, like 8, 9 o'clock-ish, to do a stream with Marcel. We're going to be talking about, obviously, I'm going to get his thoughts about the article and his thoughts about the whole Sancho possible termination. We're going to talk about Erik ten Hag, because you know my boy Marcel. You know my boy Marcel loves Ten Hag, innit? You know he loves Ten Hag. So we're going to do that. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to turn on your post notifications. I will be back tomorrow. I might do a hate-along. For Liverpool versus Arsenal, because you know what? Why not? And of course, I'll be back on Sunday as well. Some streams. We got Saeed back. Might have Nuruddin back. And we might have another person as well. And I'll be streaming on Twitch throughout the entire end of the year. Like every day, I'll be live on Twitch pretty shortly today. In probably the next half an hour or so, I'll be live on Twitch. So come over there and we can vibe. I'm now an affiliate on Twitch, so you can become you can sub, i.e. become a member on my Twitch as well, which supports the growth over there as well. And we're just vibing, we're just chilling, we're just vibing, just enjoying the day ahead. But I'll see you guys later on this evening when I'm back with Marcel. You guys already know what it is. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. You can become a member. It's the pinned comment in the chat. You get your badges, you get your emojis, all of that. You can come over and follow me on Twitch. It's in the bio of this video. Or you can just go on Twitch and type in MinaFootball. You know I'm an avid gamer. You already know that. You can join the Discord. You can follow me on socials. All of that is in the bio of this video. You guys already know what it is. I'm not giving a prediction for tomorrow's game. I'm not. You know why? Because I'm going to give it later on this evening on today's stream, so I can think about it. You guys already know what it is. Big up to everyone that's locked in. I'll be back later on. So I will see you guys then. Peace.